Good morning. Happy Thursday. My name is Alec Butner, lead meteorologist here at the Wakefield Weather Office. Going to look at some of the weather impacts, mainly focusing on today through the weekend highlights. Let me first switch it over to just a look at the current conditions across the area. So here is just a regional satellite and radar display. Uh, Draw your attention back to West Virginia. That is where our next front is slowly making its way closer to the local area. This will be the focus for showers and storms later today, and then continuing at least through the first half of the weekend. This front will slow down and then eventually stall out near the local area over the next couple of days. But otherwise, this morning we are looking at mainly clear skies for most of the area. Let me switch back to the presentation. Okay, so just looking at now some of the highlights again today into the weekend. Really, for this afternoon, we're looking at a strong to severe weather threat. The Storm Prediction Center has highlighted most of the area in a slight risk, that 2 out of 5 level. Damaging wind gusts are the main threat, but also large hail and even a brief tornado. And I'll show some more details here shortly, or possible. We're also watching the potential for heavy rainfall with the activity that'll happen later today. And then again, I would say, especially for tomorrow, for Friday afternoon into Friday night, could be multiple instances of heavy rain each day. And then, really, again, really looking at tomorrow in particular. But right now, both days do have, today and Friday, both days do have a slight risk from the Weather Prediction Center for excessive rainfall, too, for a good portion of the area. A few areas could see a quick 2 to 3 inches of rain in an hour, and again, especially tomorrow, that could result in that flash flooding. We do see some drier weather beginning to return Saturday and especially into Sunday. For the marine partners, fairly benign marine conditions are expected through the end of the week. Mainly just watching those shower and storm chances, locally gusty winds with any of those. The weather pattern, as I mentioned, our front off to the north and the west will slowly make its way into the area tonight into Friday before getting hung up nearby, and that'll lead to the continued chances for those showers and storms into the weekend before we see some improvement later in the weekend, and especially Sunday into early next week. Looking at the 3 day severe weather outlook, today is the main threat of severe weather with that slight risk, again, pretty much covering a majority of the area. Far western areas and portions of northeast North Carolina are in a marginal risk for severe weather today, but otherwise, the remainder of the area is in that slight risk, with damaging winds again being the main threat. As we get into tomorrow, less of a chance of severe weather, maybe an isolated stronger storm as you get closer to the Albemarle Sound in North Carolina, but otherwise, just looking at the general shower and thunderstorm variety for tomorrow. And then severe weather is not expected at this time for our area on Saturday. Breaking down the potential for this afternoon and evening, really looking at the, let's say, the 4 p.m. to midnight time frame. Um, Not moving particularly fast, maybe about 20 to 30 miles per hour at most. But again, that wind gust potential is really what we're looking at, and that heavy rain as well, the two highest potentials for today. I can't rule out the isolated tornado or large hail as well. And breaking down each of those categories, really the highest of the threats for the damaging winds seems to be focused right across the Maryland Eastern Shore counties, into far eastern Virginia as well, where we have our highest risk for damaging wind gusts today, and also where the highest risk for any isolated tornado corresponds to as well. Again, roughly the northern neck of Virginia over to the Maryland Eastern Shore. I'm going to step out of this and now show some timing. Hold on just a minute. Okay, so what I'm showing is just one model of what we could see timing wise later today and then continuing through tonight. You can see by about 3 to 4 p.m., this is 4 p.m. right here, already looking at the potential for showers and storms to get going around that time frame. And as we continue through the evening, I will go ahead to about 8 o'clock here. Again, more widespread activity, potentially across portions of Virginia as well, up into the Maryland eastern shore, and then really beginning to blossom as we head into the overnight hours. 9, 10 o'clock. This is 10 o'clock here on your screen with the storms and showers continuing into the night. And then finally, continuing through a good portion of the night before starting to wind down early Friday morning. This is 3 a.m. But we will be watching the next potential very late here in this model run. But as we get into tomorrow evening, tomorrow afternoon, this is 6 o'clock on Friday now, with a lot of that heavy rain across North Carolina beginning to make its way up into the area. I believe this model stops here right about 8 p.m. Friday evening, but the trend would be for this heavy rain just to continue, in the evening hours of tomorrow and tomorrow night, pushing through the area, leading to those potential flooding issues we were talking about for Friday. Let me switch back to the main presentation now. So looking again at our, now we'll focus on the flooding potential. Today and tonight, again, mainly focused probably with those stronger storms, mainly closer to the coast, but any of the urban or poor drainage areas will have that potential for some localized flooding today, just depending on where the heavier showers or storms ultimately set up. Friday again looks to be more of our widespread flooding issues with that activity moving out of the south, out of North Carolina during the late afternoon, evening hours into the overnight hours. It's very locally heavy pockets of rainfall. Again, if it sets up over the wrong place, one of the urban areas or a poor drainage area, that's where we will get that enhanced flooding potential tomorrow. And maybe just a bit of a lingering threat into Saturday as well, especially the eastern half of the area. But at this point, Friday seems to be the highest potential for these at least localized and maybe even some widespread flooding issues. Just breaking down the timing by day. This is today and tonight. Really, just focus on the chart to the right here with the probability of precipitation increasing mainly after about 3 to 6 p.m., peaking during the early overnight hours, pretty much across the board here. And for Friday as well, maybe a little bit later in that timing, as I mentioned, maybe more so in the later evening into the overnight hours with the highest rainfall potential, and pretty high potential as well, 80 to 90% area wide, and then a pretty decent swath of accumulated rain as well. At least maybe an inch to an inch and a half with those, potentially much higher pockets under any of those heavy showers and storms. It could be, 3 inches of rain plus in a very short period of time. And then for Saturday, less coverage, a little bit less in the way of total amounts as well, um, mainly focused across the eastern half of the area on Saturday. Switching gears here now, just looking at some of the other hazards, rip currents, not expecting anything, at least through the first half of the weekend. Quiet at the beaches. And looking ahead now to next week and beyond as well, temperatures and the rain, precipitation, still favoring, at least for again, next week into next weekend, near to above average temperatures, typically in the mid to upper 80s this time of year area wide. And then rain chances still favored above average, especially right along the immediate coast as well. Also, our newest drought monitor as of this morning, the latest update, continue to improve area wide with the continued rainfall over the past few weeks, and the rain that we may see tonight and tomorrow will continue to, hopefully diminish this. Much of the area now is no longer in any of drought designation, 80%. and then just a remaining sliver, especially the southwest corner and the far northern Maryland eastern shore, are is where we're still looking at least some locally moderate to severe drought status remaining. But again, with the rain expected, we should continue to see improvements as we head through this week, and then with next week's drought monitor, I'd expect to see even less. Finally, on the tropical side, nothing is expected during the next 7 days. Pretty calm out there at the moment, but we are getting into the beginning to get into the peak of hurricane season here. So just continue to keep an eye on the tropical forecast each day, and um, again, usually that September timeframe is the peak. And that's all with the weather briefing. I'm going to shift gears here and talk a little bit about the marine. For our marine users, give me just a moment. I'll keep the marine fairly short. Just again, fairly benign conditions are expected throughout the weekend outside of just any of those showers or storms. Winds primarily out of the south or the southwest today. Maybe an occasional gust to close to 20 knots, but otherwise fairly benign conditions. And the winds become a little more variable as we head into Friday and Saturday, as that front gets closer to the area and eventually hung up near the waters through the weekend. And that's all I have for the Thursday briefing. We will send out another email briefing tomorrow, Friday, highlighting some of the flood threats and the latest details. And then we will have our next live briefing on Monday, the 24th. Thank you for joining today. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. Otherwise, have a nice day.